Welcome everyone to the Wednesday morning series. Scott Brassart and me, Tami VerHelst, are here on the first Wednesday of the month. Usually, watch the calendar for schedule changes, but we had this idea a while back and came up with a plan. And so today our plan is to talk about 12 step, and a lot of this is general to all 12 steps. And then we're going to really dig into the things that are appropriate and applicable for people struggling with sex addiction, porn addiction, compulsive sexual behaviors, etc. So we are not going to pretend to be experts, other than we have worked on a daily basis to do the best we can for ourselves, and it's really worked. And so we have some pretty solid combined experience, watching others that have come and gone, etc. too. So, we hang with the winners, as we say in the meetings. But we welcome your questions, and as all of this it's a suggested program. You can take what you need and leave the rest. So we're here to help, hopefully provide information and resources that will be useful for all of you on the journey. So with that massive preface, so there's so many pieces, and I'm going to work really hard on being focused on one, and Scott will help me with that. But we get so many questions, do I have to go to 12 step? How do I find a 12 step? And then there's the misperceptions about what 12 step is and isn't. And we'll kind of work on unpacking some myths, in a little bit. But AA was the founding 12 step program. All of the other 12 step programs have been offshoots of that, based on various things. Narcotics Anonymous is about narcotics, rather than just alcohol. One of the reasons AA and all the 12 steps works is because I get to go to a place where other people like me are working on being on a path that moves forward. I'm not different. I'm not, and we'll talk about terminally unique in a minute. But there's a safe place to share, and there's other people. I remember, people saying, you're just like us, and there's hope. And that was so helpful and freeing, and it gave me hope. I was willing to believe what they said, and fortunately they were right. In the 12 steps, one of the things that, and it's how it works, and I really love this part, and we'll talk about in person and going virtual meetings too. But it, this is I love this part. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Of course, this happens. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates, but to me, this is, we all come, and Scott and I have talked about lying, and that's prevalent in all, forms of addiction. But a 12-step program gives us a safe space to learn how to start being honest with ourselves and with others. So it's where we can test the waters, and learn from others. So one of the aspects that is different for S groups, and I do want to talk about that, and I'll share my screen, is that they're like with AA, there's AA. If you have other substances, you go to NA or CA or whatever, but with the 12 steps for S groups, there's a lot of them. And so, Scott and I had a little interesting discussion, because one of the unfortunate things with 12 steps for S is they are not as prevalent as, AA is everywhere. You can find a meeting literally any time of the day or night, anywhere. So that's different for S groups. So we were talking about, how you navigate that. And so I'm going to first of all, I'm going to share my screen, because we have a list of all the 12 steps on here, but it's not like you have to pick one and then you only follow that thing. And that was really helpful for me to hear with Scott. So I'm going to share my screen, and then you can kind of talk about some of the programs and, and how you could possibly even start looking for what could be a fit.
Okay. So yeah, like Tami said, AA, if you're an alcoholic, you go to AA, and sobriety is you don't drink, no more booze, period, ever. It's really straightforward. Same with NA, it's like illicit substances, you don't do it ever. Um, Sexual recovery and porn addiction recovery 12-step groups are a little different in a lot of ways, because in all of them except for one, um, we define our own sobriety, and we do it more like an eating disorder. If I have an eating disorder and I stop eating forever, I'm going to die. um, I won't die if I never have sex again, but eating disorders are about learning how to eat in healthy ways. And we'll tell people, yeah, you can still have ice cream, but you get a scoop, not a gallon. Um, sex is sexual sobriety is about what is problematic for me and what is not, and coming up with that and staying away from the problematic stuff and pursuing the stuff that is life affirming and relationship affirming. So there's 8 groups here that we have listed for sex and porn addicts. I'll start with Sexaholics Anonymous, SA, because this is the group that defines sobriety for you. Their version of sobriety is you may have sex with your legally married spouse, period. Nothing else is acceptable, and it's a pretty strict group. If you are married and only ever want to be sexual with your partner, which is a lot of people, this is a great group. If you're a single gay man like me, not so much. But it's a good, strong group. There are a lot of meetings. Sex Addicts Anonymous and Sexual Compulsives Anonymous, SAA and SCA, are very similar. One was founded on the East Coast, one was founded on the West Coast. There's very little difference between the meetings. They teach sexual sobriety the way that we teach it at Seeking Integrity, which is you define your own plan, a circle plan, where you have these are bottom line non-sober behaviors. These are slippery behaviors that could lead me into those non-sober behaviors. And then there are healthy behaviors that we want to pursue. The meeting formats are very much the same. You're going to get mostly men in those meetings. Sometimes they even have stag meetings. We can talk about male, female in the same meeting. Is it on your list?
It's on my list, yeah.
Good.
But yeah.
SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, also very similar, but you're going to see a lot more women in SLAA, generally speaking. The groups with P in them, Porn Anonymous, Porn Addicts Anonymous, Sex and Porn Addicts Anonymous, they are newer groups. There's a growing cohort of addicts whose primary behavior is porn. A lot of them, particularly some of the younger guys that I deal with in my porn addiction work group and that we deal with at Seeking Integrity, they've never had real world sex with another person. Their entire sexual life is porn, but it's compulsive, it's destroying them. So they can feel a little uncomfortable sitting next to someone who's had, 1,000 partners, which is, sometimes happens in one of the S meetings. So they prefer a porn meeting. These groups are newer. They've all popped up within the last 10 years. They're very online oriented. You can always find an online meeting for one of those groups. And then Sexual Recovery Anonymous is one that I have never been to, so I can't talk. But it's a sexual recovery group, similar to the rest, from what I understand. But I've not been to those meetings. The rest of them I've been to various meetings. They're all a little different, but they're all the same. The only major difference is Sexaholics Anonymous tells you what sobriety is and what it is not. The other groups, you have to define it for yourself, working in conjunction with your sponsor and your therapist, hopefully a CSAT, certified sex addiction therapist. Meeting formats are very similar, but I do want to say, I can go to 3 Sex Addicts Anonymous meetings and I'll like one of them and I'll love one of them and I'll hate one of them. I mean, they all, every single individual meeting, they usually meet once a week, will have its own personality. I like groups where people talk about the solution. But there are meetings where people just sit in there and whine and talk about the problem and never get to the solution, and that doesn't work for me. So if you're looking for a particular group, trying to find out which one is the right one for you, try them all. And try multiple meetings within each group, so that you can get a feel for it. And, you may end up going to a Sex Addicts Anonymous meeting on Monday and a Porn Anonymous meeting on Wednesday and an SCA meeting on Friday and an SA meeting on Sunday. And that is just fine. Find meetings that work for you. And you'll probably, like, if I go into LA, there's all the programs. And the meetings I like, and I know some of them, I'll go to an SA meeting on Monday and then I'll go to a different program on Wednesday and see the same guys because they have found the same meeting and like it for the same reasons. So, it doesn't matter which group you go to, just be comfortable and be able to be honest. That's what Tami was talking about. If you can share honestly and openly and get support, great. You're in the right spot. Okay, and I'm going to stop and turn it back to Tami.
No, thank you. And I should have said, I am on the board of directors for SCA as an outside liaison. So I should, but in integrity, I want to. But I'm with Scott. Go where you find good meetings. So the next topic I want to talk about is, how do you find a meeting, and then how do we find healthy meetings? And I love what you were talking about with I was thinking the same thing. It's the ones where we're talking about the solution when there is like we're thinking about, or we're going into long descriptions of acting out, even if we try to pawn it off as I'm talking about what I'm struggling with. No, I'm struggling with fantasizing or objectifying and whatever. I mean, like, own what we're doing, but it's also what's the solution for that? So yes, there's different meetings, and you talk about I found different meetings. So how do you find them, Scott? If I'm just looking at starting, on this journey, like I don't know what to do. I mean, obviously we have these resources on the page and they're hyperlinks. There's a reason for that. So what would you suggest to somebody who's going like, I don't even know how to find one?
Couple of ways to go about this is, go to our website, sexrelationshiphealing.com, which is the one you opened up, or seekingintegrity.com also has a very similar resource page. Click on SAA and it'll have meetings. It'll literally have a tab that says find a meeting. Click on that, and it might ask, what zip code are you in? You type it in, and it'll give you all the meetings for that week in your area. Or you can say, I want an online meeting, and it'll tell you where they are. So you can find them that way. Tami's big on us all having a CSAT, and I am too. If you have a CSAT, a certified sex addiction therapist, you should ask your CSAT. Are there some good meetings that you know about? Because they will know. I mean, I remember early on, I was like, I don't know what meeting to go to. And my CSAT told me what meetings to go to. And I went. And they were good. I mean, he knew the good meetings. Good for him. And then if you find a meeting you like, ask the other people in there, what other meetings do you go to? I'm trying to set a schedule. And setting a schedule is important. The phrase regular meetings regularly, it means I have a home group. I have a meeting that I go to every week, no matter what. And if I don't show up, somebody calls me and says, Scott, are you sick? Do you need something? And Tami has that too. You need to go to pretty much the same meetings every week, although mix it up once in a while. But I pretty much go to the same meetings every week. People know me, I know them, and if I'm not there, people are wondering why I'm not there. So I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that, Tami? Like,
and I agree with all of that. And so let's talk about home group. That wasn't even on my list, but like we're using these terms, and I'm gonna be really honest with you. Like 12-step is kind of like its own unique language, and but you know what, when I'm talking to people, so the code word is, are you a friend of Bill W's? And then you'll know. And if they go, I don't even know what you mean, then they're not. But otherwise you go, yeah. I mean, you start picking up on just the way we've incorporated the slogans that help us. But home groups, so I moved from one state to another, and one of my first tasks when I got to where I am, where there's sunshine, was finding a home group, and because that's really important to me, that I find a home group. And it isn't a lifelong commitment, because things change. So, I shopped around, and that means I went to different meetings. And Scott's 100% right. They have different personalities. If there's a guru at the meeting, to me, that's a toxic meeting. I don't want the gurus. I want people who are all there doing the work for themselves. So and then I found a meeting, and that was my home group. And then it shifted, and it's all fine. Everything moves. And so then I was like, I need to find a new home group. And I did, and, and one, I've got two favorite meetings. One is a noontime meeting, every day of the work week. And then one is a Thursday night meeting. And those are the groups that I consistently go to. And then every now and then I throw in something completely random, because it's good for me. I can get really, yes, I love to see my friends and all that, but I can learn something from any meeting. And I travel, I used to travel a lot. One of the most fun things was going to different meetings in different places. I've had some great experiences, and I don't, and I didn't know anybody, and I did, our daughter is in a different location, and I was visiting her regularly, and I found a home group there. And I was like, if I lived there, that's where I would go. I don't, but when I'm there, they see me regularly. That's important to me, that I make that commitment. I schedule it in, because it's, that's important to me, and it's not because I'm worried about acting out. I just live better. I am more on the beam of serenity if I do the things I need to do to take care of myself on any given day. So, in the big book, we talk about the easier, softer way. And to me now, I mean, addicts are constantly looking for the easier, softer way. But in recovery, the easier, softer way is just keep on this path. It's given me, so much good and blessings. And I want to talk quickly, there's other 12 steps. Many people have co-occurring addiction. So I'm just going to give a nod, to, we have information about many others, and you talked about eating disorders, and that is a behavioral. Gambling is, shopping is, so there are other forms of behavioral problems. Gaming has gotten to be huge. And then I want to talk really briefly about 12 step for partners. Honestly, often we don't recommend going to COSA and things. I mean, if you are in a good place and can go and have support and can take what you need, often there's a lot of codependent language, and that is not what we ascribe to. We really look at this from a prodependent lens. If you're not familiar with that, stay tuned. We've got podcasts and webinars on that as well. So if you find them helpful, many people find adult children, have had parental, addiction, and even though it says adult children of alcoholics, you can, it can resonate, with you from that standpoint. So any thoughts on those?
A quick plug for Recovering Couples Anonymous. If you have it in your area and the two of you want to go to a meeting together, Recovering Couples Anonymous is great. And a lot of addicts will tell me, it helped me break through my denial, hearing that guy's denial in front and watching his wife's face. And it was like, oh my God, I do that too. So Recovering Couples Anonymous, but it's also very supportive for betrayed partners. I'm a fan if you're a couple and you want to try to do something together.
And with all of these, it's try it,
Yeah.
and some, it might be, oh, we're not quite ready. I'm too whatever, I'm too fragile yet. Maybe that's exactly what you need though. So try it. And, if you're, like, in the big book, and, willingness is the key. I mean, honestly, willingness is the key.
Also, there are other groups that aren't necessarily 12-step groups that can be really good. There's a lot of men's groups at churches. There's something called Celebrate Recovery, which is not specifically 12-step, but it's guys in it's a Christian setting, but you come together and everybody talks about their addictions. It can be great. There's smart recovery, again, not 12 steps, but it can be useful. Tami and I are both fans of 12-step recovery because that's what worked for us, but there are other options, and explore them. And if you find that you get more from that than you get from a SAA meeting, great. Although if you're a sex addict, do both because you need a specific place for sexual recovery.
Well, and I think that that's key because you know, and I'm again, no, nothing negative about any group. It's fine what works for you, but you know, one of my perceptions is that like Celebrate Recovery is usually once a week, and like once a week is not enough, you know, especially early in the process. But you know, so yes, and to me makes a lot of sense. Yes, and you know, find you know what's in the schedule, and this is you know you've heard this a lot, I'm sure too. I don't have time. Oh, I want to start with 90 meetings in 90 days, you know, and this is about time and meetings, and you know, what does that mean, you know? And to me the commitment is I'm going to choose 90 meetings in 90 days, you know, and those could be 12-step, they could be the Celebrate Recovery. I even think our drop-in groups are, you know, good enough to, and we'll talk about those in a minute, but I think those are good enough substitution. Podcasts, watching a webinar are not. It has got to be accountability,
interactive.
yes. And one of the things with 12-step is if you're, I say this all the time, if you are just warming a seat in the 12-step, you know, you're not participating in discussion, you're not working on a step, or it's been 2 years and you're still on step one, you know, you're you know, you're stuck, you know, then you need more than what you're, you know, then either add a whole bunch more meetings. But the 90 meetings in 90 days, there's no magic that, you know, at day 91, all of a sudden everything's going to be rosy and glowy. It's just, gosh, I've committed for that. Right. And the pushback that I get sometimes from people is, I don't have an hour a day. And my common response is, gosh, when I was in my addiction, I had plenty of time to plan, to act out, and to think about the acting out. I had so much extra time, you know, when I went, so if we cannot find an hour a day to work towards something different, that says something about our willingness.
Yeah, I was an addict for 6 hours a day, and suddenly I had 6 hours a day of free time, but it was tough to find that hour to go to a 12-step meeting somehow. Actually, I was grateful for 12-step meetings because I needed something to do.
Yes.
Because I had a whole bunch of free time all of a sudden. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yes. And I think we share this, that, you know, I went to multiple meetings in a day because, like, you know, it was a really safe place to be. And I was getting good things in, and, you know, I was learning, and I had a lot to learn, you know, so it was really, it was a safety net. So I want to talk about, as we talk about safety nets, I've heard this, and I know you have too, because we've discussed it, that we hear the perception that if I send my husband to 12-step, he's going to learn new behaviors.
Yeah. As a veteran of 12-step sexual recovery meetings, yeah, guys go into meetings and we talk about what we've done or the fantasies we've had that we're ashamed of. But we're in a setting where we're all there to stop doing this stuff. I never went to a meeting to learn something new. I mean, about how to act out. I mean, I always went to a meeting to learn something new, but not about how to act out. I was there to stay sober. And when I talk about, you know, I was triggered by this, and I had this thought, it's followed by, this is what I did to stay sober. And that's the learning part from a 12-step meeting. I will also say that it's normal to sometimes get triggered at a 12-step meeting. Somebody will say something and it'll trigger a memory or a euphoric recall or you know, oh, I never tried that before, which is what Tami talked about being worried about. But we're in a safe set. We're not acting on this. And every time I get triggered and don't act on it, that trigger loses some power. The AA meeting room that I go to is right next to a grocery store. You may have heard this before. On the chip aisle, it's chips on one side, and on the other side is the booze. And it's really frustrating for people who, shop there and then come over to the meeting. I was like, I went to get some chips and I saw, and they'll mention a brand of scotch or whatever. And if it happens to be your brand, or even if it wasn't, everybody in the room can taste it. I mean, literally taste it. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember, and we're all triggered, but we're in an AA meeting. We're not going to drink. We're not going to suddenly run over and grab a couple bottles and bring them back and, knock them down. And that trigger loses its power. People can talk about that. You can talk about my very specific brand of scotch, and I still taste it, but I don't want to go get some. And it's the same with sexual recovery meetings. Just because you get triggered, this is actually a good thing because you're not acting on it. That's my rant thoughts.
Well,
Tami.
and you're learning how to handle the trigger. Like you're
Yeah,
owning, I'm triggered, and
yeah,
I'm not acting on it, and I've got tools that I can use. And like if I'm not sitting in the safety of a 12-step meeting, I can go, oh, my recall is I can get through this trigger without acting out. So we learn good things. I one time and I was very immature and I had a lot of, room for improvement. I still do, but it's one of those things. But I was whining in a 12-step meeting about a substance that I didn't get to use. And somebody shut me down so fast. They were telling Tammy, if you had used that, you would have liked it too much and you would have never gotten sober. And I was like,
yeah,
and I was like, oh, I mean, like, wow, thank you
yeah.
for removing any delusions of like, oh, poor me, I didn't get to. I mean, really? I mean, that's where I was.
Thank you
So,
for smacking down my denial. Um,
yeah,
we need to address the other half of this question, which is
yes,
I don't want my husband going to a meeting with women in it.
yes,
He
that
will
was my
get
next
triggered. He
question.
will want to act out. And you know what? Same answer. You know what? I see, I'm a gay man, so I go to meetings, I mean, I can't avoid triggers. The world is full of triggers. I need to learn how to deal with it. And where better to learn how to deal with it than in a 12-step meeting? Now, if you're an addict listening to this, if you go to a meeting and there's some hottie sitting across the table and you're like, oh shit, you got to look away. You may have to switch chairs so you're not staring at them. And after the meeting, normally we encourage you to go up and introduce yourself to, no, not this one. You don't get to help this newcomer. That's someone else's job. Leave them alone. They're here for the same reason you are. And vice versa. You don't need to deal with that trigger on an ongoing basis, and they don't need to deal with you there are other people who can help you and them. Um, but you know, it's normal to be triggered. It's what we do with our triggers. If I make a movie out of it, then I'm acting out basically. But if I acknowledge it and look away and turn to this person and talk to them, this is a healthy behavior. And I'm learning how to deal with triggers when I'm at the beach or my kid's soccer game or wherever. Um, so I understand why betrayed partners often say, I don't want him around other women. But, look, the world is full of other women. Maybe a 12-step meeting is the safest place to learn how to not behave badly. My 2 cents.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And I have talked to partners who, they are so struggling and I say, you cannot bubble wrap your addict, enough to make the world safe. You cannot have them on a tight enough leash. And what happens when there's that much control? Poof, like that's a pretty good, and I'm not blaming partners, but I'm just saying, like it really is up to us to learn how to navigate the world and have a safe environment. I want to talk, this is another really big one that we hear there. I'm not going there because it's all religion. And and that is Celebrate Recovery would be, and there
Yeah,
are other meetings, and they will identify,
yeah,
just because it's in a church basement doesn't mean it's religious. It's like
yeah.
that's the free place or low cost place to have a meeting. So there's a chapter to the agnostics, and we've got
Mhm.
questions, and I don't want to take time, but in the AA Big Book, the founders address that. They talked about, a higher power is a God of your understanding. I share often, which was shared at 12 step, God could be good orderly direction, because
Right.
Lord knows, as in my acting out, I sure had no direction, no good orderly. It was absolutely,
Right.
it was chaos, and we learn in recovery to create a plan and a path that will lead us in a good orderly direction. And so it is whatever a higher power of your understanding, if there is a meeting that identifies that it is a specific religion, but people all over the world, as Bill sees it, is one of the books that one of the founders of AA wrote, or it's compilations of his writings. And there was one that, when they were creating the 12 steps, they talked to, people of all different religions. And the only thing the Buddhist said was, we would use good, GOOD, rather than God. And I was like, that's great, but otherwise it works for people of all religions or no religion. And there's acceptance on that. So thoughts on that aspect?
Yeah, the first the G word appears in the 12 steps, followed by the words as God, as we understand God. And I always put in parentheses, or don't, because I don't. You don't have to believe anything specific. There are meetings. There's a meeting here that gets very Christian and very gaudy, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't go to it. It's not for me. But the people who go to that meeting love that meeting because they get to, fine. Like I said, every meeting has its own personality. That one's personality didn't jive with me. My friend Don, 52 years sober when he died, atheist to the end. No problem staying sober. Loved the steps, loved program. Um, you know, 12-step meetings are not cults. They are not religions, and they do not ask you to join any specific religion or believe any specific set of religious or spiritual tenets. It is a higher power as you understand it or don't. If somebody's pushing religion down your throat, go talk to somebody else. I mean, if somebody's telling you you're doing God wrong, go talk to somebody else. Because that's not what 12-step groups are about. And I've really, except for that one meeting, and it's known for that, and they have it in the title, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called, but it's pretty obvious what it is. Um, you know, most meetings are really, really, really super accepting and happy to discuss your spiritual connection or lack thereof, however you want to present it. So don't stay away because you're worried they're going to shove some version of God down your throat. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, all of my meetings have people of all beliefs and lack of beliefs. But you know what? Even if the group is their higher power,
Yeah.
somebody at my meeting recently was talking about, somebody wrote something about using doorknobs as a higher power, and they're like, they made a case for it because they're everywhere, and I can't even remember all the details, but I was like, well, okay, but you know what? It was because as addicts, we go, it's all about us, and we're going to think our way out of this, or we're going to,
Yeah.
our best thinking got us into the hot mess we're in. So understanding that we can't fix it by ourselves, that's the first 3 steps. My life is unmanageable. I can't do this by myself. I'm going to look to something but outside of myself for help. Great. You're on a really good path. So,
And we walked through kind of the specifics of the step, I think, a month ago. So if you're interested in that, go look at our video from a month ago, because we talked
yes.
about this,
Well,
how the steps themselves work last time.
Yes, and Charlie Rizian did a video
A good
series for
series.
us, which is posted on our website, and she unpacked word by word, the 12 steps. It was really fascinating, even to somebody who, has been practicing them for a while. So that was helpful. The last thing, and then we're gonna get to questions, is I get asked about, our drop-in groups or work groups, 12-step, and even as our treatment program. But no, our drop-in groups are not 12-step, because we have a person who is hosting the meeting to keep it a safe space. That is not, there is somebody who takes, takes the role of leading the meeting on a given day in a 12-step meeting, but they're just a servant, a trusted servant as such. But and they're talking specifically about 12-step. Ours are topical, like Troy loves on Friday. They're talking about attachment wounds, but it is different. So it would not be, you would not be working the 12 steps within our drop-in groups. Same with our work groups. So Scott has the next Sex Addiction 101 online work group starting on the 1st of March. There's a partners one starting February 21st too. I'll give a plug for that. Those are, we call it psychoeducation. So it is great supplemental for doing 12 steps, for working with your sponsor, for working with your therapist, but it is not, you would not be just doing 12 steps, in Scott's Sex Addiction 101 group. It's very different, but it would be a good support collaboration piece for you on this journey. So any other thoughts on those?
The more different things you do for your recovery, the more likely you are to recover. That's research based. So having a therapist, having 12-step recovery, having a work group, having an online discussion group that's not necessarily 12-step based, that's like 4 different things. And that's great. That increases your likelihood of staying sober. So try them all, grab the ones that go for you. A lot of people say, I try to do something for my recovery every day. That doesn't mean you have to go to 7 12-step meetings every week. You might go to 4 12-step meetings and a work group and 2 drop-ins or something. Great.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. And for that time, every single day, you are focused on that. I start my day, I have my recovery meditations I read in the morning, and it's just to set the intention, and it's a grounding thing for me. And I did mention treatment. Like when I went to treatment a really long time ago, I literally did the steps. Like that's what we did. That's not what we do at our residential treatment program. So do we honor 12 step? Yeah. The guys go to a favorite 12 step on Sunday morning, and so they're woven in there, but it's not just doing the steps. And you can email or call me if you've got questions on that. But Scott, we've got bunches of questions.
Yeah, whatever we don't get to this week, we'll save and we'll do them.
Okay.
Next
now
month.
Just see. Okay.
We'll see how many.
Yes, I'm a betrayed partner. My husband will not admit he is doing anything wrong. However, his strange behavior and my intuition tells me there is at least problematic sexual behavior, if not full-on sex addiction. How do you tell the difference, and can 12-step help in either case?
We have a screening test for sex addiction on. I know it's on Seeking Integrity. I think
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna find it.
Pop it in the chat feature.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you can get him to take it and answer honestly, great. But if he won't take it, or you don't think he'll answer honestly, you can take it for him, and kind of it'll give you some thoughts. The criteria for diagnosing sex addiction are preoccupation to the point of obsession. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, planning for it, doing it. The second criteria is loss of control, which is generally evidenced by multiple failed attempts to quit or cut back. And then the third criteria is consequences. If those 3 things are happening, you've probably got a sex addiction. Otherwise, it's just problematic sexual behavior. I mean, you can have a cheater who's not a sex addict. It's possible. Either way, the same kind of treatment is in order. It's like, taking accountability for what you've done, breaking through denial about the nature of it, accepting your consequences, and changing your behavior, creating a plan for behavior change. So whether he's an addict or not, trust your gut, number one. Betrayed partners, trust your gut. If your instinct is telling you something's wrong, probably something is wrong. And addicts are notorious for when you say, are you having an affair? Have I done something to offend you? They'll be like, no, what's wrong with you that you think that? Okay, just trust your gut. Okay. That 12 steps are designed for addicts. But Kristen Snowden and I wrote a 12-step book for non-addicts, because I think the 12 steps, and Kristen agrees with me, and Tammy's nodding, they're planned for living, and everyone should work the 12 steps, I think. So yeah, they'll help anybody. Tammy probably has a copy of my book
I
handy.
have a
I don't.
copy right here of Life Anonymous. I was actually thinking the same thing, Scott, because but here's the catch with this. He doesn't admit that he has a problem. So
Right.
unfortunately,
Right.
I should have mentioned this in the previous stuff, but if you go to a 12-step program and all you're doing is looking at how you're different, that was the terminally unique. Now I'm different than all of these other, I'm not as bad as them, then no, you aren't going to get anything out of it. And so when someone is, if somebody's willing to go, gosh, our relationship is, is struggling, I'm willing to go to this free meeting and just see. I usually say try at least 6, because if you go to, I hear this all the time, I went to a meeting and it didn't work, like you think in 1 hour you're going to get, anyway, that's not realistic. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so the Life Anonymous book, it's on our website. There's a link to that. And Kristen did a series of videos on that 12-step, for Life Anonymous, the year of 2022. Those recordings are posted as well. So we have lots of content that can help guide you, even from a non-addict standpoint. But I'm with Scott, trust your gut. And I did put in the chat, I did put the link to the online self-assessment. So, okay. My husband wants to use his friend as an accountability partner and doesn't want to share his slip ups with me because he says I can't handle it. I do get upset and I do express how I don't think he is taking his recovery seriously. You're right. He doesn't want to hear this. How do I get through to him and let him know he needs to be working harder without coming across as being not understanding and nagging? What is acceptable way to react to finding out he hasn't shared information with me? I tell him I need to see progress and need transparency. I feel like I'm bashing my head against a wall. I asked him how I'm supposed to know he's doing well and trust again when he doesn't want to disclose slip ups to me. And he sends me a Bible verse saying, love always trusts. He says he's working on his recovery, but is only willing to do what he thinks is adequate and wants me to understand that he's struggling and give him grace. He doesn't believe his problem is as severe as he thinks it is. So I'm going to start with this one because this is, you can't make him. This is, so with all the, yeah, he's hearing it as nagging, and I often use the Charlie Brown wah 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 wah. That's what is being heard, and no, his friend is not his accountability partner. We're telling you that you need people like you. You need a plan, and a friend that goes, oh yeah, all guys look at porn. It's not a big deal. Check-ins for you, like the Thanos. We've got information on that on the website too. Here's what I would really love. We have an empowered women's retreat coming up. And I'm assuming female. I shouldn't, but I'm assuming female. It's for women who are struggling, caught in this, caught in some of this and want to get unstuck. And it isn't about him. This is, the therapists that are there will support you. It is amazing and healing, and there is clarity. But for you, you can tell them, your recovery, I don't feel like you are taking your recovery seriously. Therefore, I can't trust you. My boundary is, as you are not doing what I need for my safety, my physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, spiritual safety, then I'm going to be less available. I'm going to be, hanging with my tribe of support people that can help me, and yeah, but no addict changes until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same. He's really comfy right now. He's, so he's got his own little, self-deluded plan. I'm going to just say it, but he's able to push you away. And I really hate when Bible verses are thrown at people to shut them down. There's a whole bunch of what love is in the Bible too. And you may want to pull those back out,
Don't fight with
but
Bible. Don't fight with Bible
don't get into
verses.
that. So yeah. So Scott, help.
I'm going to address the first little bit here. My husband wants to use his friend as an accountability partner and doesn't want to share his slip ups with me because he says I can't handle it. An accountability partner is, and this is what I tell addicts when they ask who should my accountability partner? Not your wife. Your
Correct.
wife is not your accountability partner. But look, your buddy next door who says looking at porn, everybody does it. He is also not your accountability partner. Your accountability partner is your sponsor in a 12-step program. It's your therapist. Some therapists will agree to be an accountability, or it's somebody or several somebodies in sexual recovery who understand your issues. They are your accountability partner. The second half of this is he doesn't want to share his slip ups with me because he says I can't handle it. And this is what I tell them. If you're walking down the street and, yoga pants walks by and you get triggered by yoga pants, but then you get it out of your head, you don't make a movie out of it, you just get on with, you take action. You talk about that trigger with your accountability partner or partners. You don't need to share that with your spousal partner. They don't need to know every little trigger that you have. But if you act on it, if you like slip around and follow yoga pants for 3 blocks and have a big old fantasy about it, I'm sorry, you have to tell your partner. You have to come clean. And guess what? Your partner's going to get mad, as well they should, because that's a betrayal. But you still have to tell them, if you want to rebuild trust, if you slip, if you relapse, you have to come clean. Otherwise, relationships are built upon trust, mutual trust. And after you betray your partner, trust is toast. So you have to start coming clean to rebuild trust. The rest of this, Tami got it. I mean, like if you're in a relationship with a sex addict and he is just willfully not recovering, your job is to set boundaries to protect yourself. You know, if you're not going to do this, I will feel this way and I will engage in this, and this behavior to protect myself. And, I may ask you to move out of the house. I may file for divorce. But you have to know what you can live with and what you can't, and what you need to feel safe. And you have to state it in your boundaries. To feel safe in this relationship, I need to see you going to 12-step meetings, and I need you to be accountable with me and do whatever you need. If you're not willing to do that, here are the steps I will take to protect myself. Debbie McCrae is our queen of boundaries. Any of her videos, go, if you want to learn how to set boundaries, follow Debbie's advice.
Yeah, she does I put the Empowered Women's Retreat. She taught the other presenters, facilitators, therapists there. They're like, I didn't know that. Like, she's that good, and she will be at the Austin retreat too. So, okay. Yeah. The next question: addict here, newly sober, only a few days. Discovery was 6 weeks ago. I have been to 5 CSAT therapy sessions since discovery, and I have to pay for it out of pocket. We can't financially afford to continue weekly therapy. How do I balance therapy and finances, especially with my wife wanting disclosure ASAP? So all of those 12 steps we mentioned, free.
Yeah.
All of the drop-in groups, free. This is free. But here's the trick. And like, you guys trying to do disclosure without both of you having a qualified professional, not a great option. This is where you suck it up and go, okay, we're going to commit to this financial investment because we want a good result. We want to set that foundation. So there may be, Scott's work group starts, Sex Addiction 101. It's less than $400 for 6 weeks of 90-minute live facilitating. You get good information. That would be how to supplement it on a lower cost basis. And, it's not fair to, but, to ask therapists to do a sliding scale, but they may be able to do something to help you, for this period of time, or, I don't know. And the other thing is, if you have insurance, many of them have a super bill that you can submit for at least some reimbursement. But invest in the CSATs, have both of you get the help so that you can do that disclosure, but don't do a disclosure if you're still acting out, because you only have a few days. You don't want to do another one and then another and another. So get the foundation under you so that you're able to move forward, without repeat.
I'm going to be slightly crass here, and I'm going to say that therapists are cheaper than divorce lawyers. So that's number one. And if you want to get a full sense of how to do disclosure properly, a book called Courageous Love. It's a soup to nuts look at disclosure, and it'll walk you through the process, and it'll tell you why you both need to have a therapist, and why it takes a little bit of time, and also the benefits that you're going to get from it. So I would say the book's called Courageous Love. I definitely suggest you get a copy of that, and you and your wife both read it, so you understand what you're doing and why. And
Yeah.
you need CSATs throughout that.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a disaster. A poorly executed disclosure does more damage than good.
Thank you for sharing that.
And
I
well
agree.
executed disclosure is when a relationship starts to heal.
Yeah, but it isn't like you can be on a healing path. It just really gives you that foundation. So,
Yes.
but that's the point of it. It's not, oh, now I know everything and now I can. No, you can be working towards that, and just know that we're committing to building this structure that we can continue. Okay, next one, and this is there's two different questions on that topic. Is it more difficult to work with the steps if a partner hops from different meetings on a regular basis?
The steps should be worked in conjunction with a sponsor. A sponsor's job, as far as I'm concerned, is to walk you through the 12 steps. To that end, you probably need a home group. You can hop around to a bunch of other meetings as long as you have a home group, and that's where your sponsor is. You shouldn't have any trouble working the 12 steps as long as the sponsor is consistent and you're consistent in meeting with the sponsor. I have no problem with meeting hopping, but I also think everybody needs a home group.
And I agree. And the steps, like Scott said, they're probably pretty much identical, if not. They all come from AA, so there's just slight modifications, to them. But it is, and here's the other thing with a sponsor, and we should talk about that at length on another one. But it's you want somebody who is actually doing the work. I hear the problems where they pick somebody that they like, but that person's slipping and tripping all the time too. So you want somebody who's actually doing the steps, that can guide you to do the steps. And there are primers on like a jump path through the 12 steps. Like there's the big book, and then there's other helpful supplemental tools to work through the 12 steps. The trick is to work them. Okay, next question. What is acceptable for a betrayed partner to ask about around meetings for my SA husband attends? I don't want to know the in-depth information, but I would like to know something about where my SA husband is with his 12-step work. What sorts of things he is focused on? Is that crossing the line of privacy of 12-step programs?
You deserve to know which meetings he's attending. You deserve to know, does he have a sponsor? You deserve to know what step he is on. You don't deserve to know who else was at the meeting, or what was shared, or anybody, the dirt on no. But he can tell you about his recovery. I'm going to the Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday SAA meetings. My sponsor's name is Joe. We're on step 3. Step 3, he might even choose to tell you step 3 is, turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God. I'm struggling with this because, or this is easy for me because. He's going to do step 4, which is a searching and fearless moral inventory. And step 5 is sharing that with another human being. Sorry, you are not that human being. You can ask for full therapeutic disclosure, which we addressed just a second ago, but not his step 4. You should not be looking at his work groups. You should not be reading his journal. But you absolutely deserve to know, is he going to meetings? Which meetings? Does he have a sponsor? And what step is he on? And if he chooses to share more, by all means. But you're asking for stuff that you absolutely have a right to know.
Yeah, and first of all, if I'm walking out to a meeting, I'm telling my husband, bye, I'm off to my meeting. Or I'm telling him, like, I'm committed to going to the meeting today. Don't let me not, like it's the new meeting. I'll get caught up in work, and like, don't let me leave, too late. Like it's his job. No, it's usually I'm just committing to him that I'm going to leave on time. I'm not going to answer that last call or whatever. So he should know, here's the real thing. You will see him starting to change if he's actually doing the work. Again, if you just go warm a seat at the meeting, if you're not real about it, like those who pretend like everything is always perfect in a meeting are not getting it. This is where we share the stuff so that we can unpack it and get a plan to go, hey, how do we move forward with this? Somebody else is going to, there has not ever been a problem that I've heard someone share that somebody else hasn't had something that would be useful, for experience, strength, and hope to do that. So, but I would invite you, focus on I talked about healthy boundaries. Debbie Allen did a 3-circle plan. One of the things Scott teaches in Sex Addiction 101 is a 3-circle plan. And Debbie Allen did one webinar on our site for partners. And if you are focusing on him and his behaviors, it sucks the joy and life out of you. So for some partners, putting the addict's behaviors in their middle circle is how I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to have my healthy boundaries. So what he's doing or not doing, it would be helpful. It can be part of my boundaries. It really helps me build trust if you tell me, what meeting you're going to. And even, like the topic was gratitude. That's useful, or I gleaned something new out of it. Great,
Right.
Not about other
If
people.
he wants to tell you about what he took away from the meeting, great. That's his choice. But if he doesn't want to tell you, I would suggest respecting that maybe he doesn't want to tell you because he doesn't want to break someone else's anonymity, or
Yeah.
because he's still processing what he heard, or whatever.
Watch for the actionable changes. That to me would be that's key. It's like doing this work, working the steps changes your life, and it's obvious to other people. Like we change, we have to. Okay, next question. I'm the trade partner. We've been together 17 years, have a teenager, 10 years since first major discovery, almost 6 months since the last. We found out about SA, PA, and BT. Do you know what BT is? I don't know. You're right. Sex addiction. I was thinking 12-step meeting. Sorry. So sex addiction, porn addiction, betrayal trauma. Yeah,
was too.
Sorry.
Because there are 12-step programs that go by SA.
Yeah, exactly. And we're actually learning and doing the recovery healing work. He has started doing 12-step and found a group that he likes. They are talking about getting him a sponsor.
Some groups do it that way.
Oh, okay. I'm not
in sexual recovery, sometimes it's not uncommon.
Okay. And I've been having a lot of anxious feelings about it. I don't have a lot of social support due to years of slow burning isolation. He does have friends, but it's not really vulnerable with them either. I feel like my anxiety is centered around his use of other people's opinions to validate his behaviors to himself and me while manipulating me. Also, because it feels like, oh, nice, someone else to support him and help him, will he be really honest sharing things with besides me that he can't with me? Okay, I think I'm following this. I think it is also a lot to do with my grief and anger, and this is my life, but not what I signed up for. Thank you. So I hear you, and I hear the fear. So Scott, can you?
This is one, I always say to betrayed partners, you're not the one with the addiction, so you don't need therapy and support, but maybe you deserve it. So first and foremost, get some support for yourself. He's getting some support. I understand your fear around that, because what if they tell him that what he's doing is okay? If he's in a 12-step sexual recovery group, that's probably not what they're telling you. They're probably saying, dude, what are you thinking? No, that's not okay. If your wife was watching you do that, what would she say? This is the kind of advice we give each other. It's like, really? You thought that was okay? That's terrible. They're hopefully helping him do like a circle plan where he understands these behaviors are really problematic for you and your relationship. Stop doing them. These are the slippery things in your life that you need to keep an eye on and maybe avoid. And here are some healthy things you can do. This is a circle plan again, to help with your recovery and to give you better coping skills, because addiction is a coping mechanism. It's a maladaptive coping mechanism. It's how I avoid my pain. and having some friends to support him, friends in recovery to support him, allows him to be vulnerable and cope in a healthier way. Um, I, I understand your fear about him maybe getting, you know, bad advice. But if he's going to a CSAT and he's going to 12-step meetings and getting a sponsor, he's probably getting good advice. Maybe not uniformly 100% perfect, but, because we're not uniformly 100% perfect just because we're in recovery. Um, but he's getting a lot better advice than staying alone in his head, which is a bad neighborhood, and he just should not be there alone. Um, and you're in pain. I mean, I can hear it from your question. Let's find you some support, and Tami, yours with that.
Yes. So, and yes, and I just tagged in here the drop-in groups. There are drop-in groups for betrayed partners. Join them. They're free. There's a betrayed partner work group. I should grab that one too. For starting again on the 21st of February, similar to, as I've mentioned, the Sex Addiction 101 starts March 1st with Scott. Angela Spearman does a great job of hosting that, and you'll have tools to use, and you'll have support. Many of those betrayed partners connect, as peer support for each other to talk in between the group time. So there's lots of support for you. What you've been doing that hasn't worked, let him try this, and getting a sponsor, and that's like, this will be different. And yes, I know it's scary, but your goal to me is getting support for you. Like, he's finding that. Let's get you support and healing for you. Do you have a couple more minutes? Because there's a couple of questions that are really 12-step oriented. Can you?
Sure.
Okay, So how long after going to your first meeting do you get to find a sponsor? Can you get a temporary sponsor until you find one you're comfortable with?
Temporary sponsors are great. I consider every sponsor temporary. I mean, some of them last forever, some of them don't. As soon as you can get a sponsor, get a sponsor. Look for somebody who, here's what I would look for if I was looking for a sponsor today. I would go to a meeting, I would listen for somebody who are recovery focused, solution focused, who has some time, who's worked the steps and is smiling. They're genuinely in recovery, and they're happy about it, and they're happy to be at a meeting, and they're happy to, that's what I would look for. If you wait to find the perfect first person, you're going to be waiting a long time. So get yourself a temp sponsor and start the work.
Yes.
Get a temp sponsor. Raise your hand and say, I need a temporary sponsor. Can someone be my sponsor? Please.
And that's scary. I'm not lying. That's scary. Yeah. So, yeah.
And someone will come to talk to you after the meeting. And if they don't, you go find someone who shared something interesting and say, listen, I really do need a temp sponsor. Can you help me or point me to somebody who will do it?
Yes. So the next one is, if you attend one of those groups that have members who spend most of their time complaining about their life, is there a way to shift the dynamic to talking about what has worked for us instead of complaining? When I'm in my SAA group, I use my share to talk about what has worked for me and talk about what recovery looks like and feels like. There are members in my group who are still acting out and treat the group like therapy. Is changing groups the only idea to circumvent this?
Look, I mean, even the best meetings can get whiny sometimes. I almost always sit next to my friend Brett if we're both in the room. And when the meeting starts going off track like that, I'll either poke him in the ribs or poke me in the ribs, which means one of us needs to talk about the solution. And then the other one needs to go next and talk about the solution to get us back on track. It only takes one or two people talking about the solution to change the tenor of a meeting. There's always somebody in our meetings, even my home group, we get street people in there, and they're often seriously mentally ill. We get, very new people who are not staying sober, and, they're on the revolving door plan. And they just come in there and share about their troubles. And it's okay, because, what we say to them is keep coming back. And then we follow it up, listen for solutions. And we always, our group says that, keep coming back and listen for solutions. You know, yeah, you can, I mean, look, if a group is nothing but whining for every week for the full hour or 90 minutes, find a new group. But you know, if there's a mix of that, that's fine. I mean, sometimes the whining reminds me of where I used to be.
Yeah. And to me, I was like patience isn't my strongest suit. And what I have learned is I can practice on my not strongest suit in meetings like that too. So it's always, what can I learn? And like Scott, sometimes it's just gratitude that I'm not in,
Yeah.
in that person's shoes. But yeah, I mean, I make sure that I have meetings that are meaningful to me, but there's always someone, that you just, and I go, wait, I have control over me. That's it, not anybody else. And, they're here for their own reasons. So I'm going to capture the rest of them, but I want us to talk about the very last one, Scott.
Okay.
Are betrayed partners welcome to attend a sex addiction meeting? Is
No.
this appropriate if they are attending the meeting regularly already?
All right. If it is an open meeting, and there are some open SAA meetings, but not very many. There's a lot of open AA meetings. Anyone's welcome.
Speaker meetings, yeah.
Right. SAA meetings tend to be closed, which means only if you're a sex addict. If it's an open meeting and you want to go, I would suggest you have your husband the week before say, my wife would really like to attend this meeting next week. Is that okay? And the group can decide, yeah, we're cool with that or not. You are likely to have a dampening effect on the honesty and sharing. Unless the group says, yeah, come on in and we'll just be ourselves. And that's, and that's okay. But there's a reason most sex addict meetings are closed meetings, which means addicts only. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of fear. Addicts have a lot of obstacles to overcome toward getting honest and vulnerable in a way that allows others to help them. Having someone's betrayed partner there would have a real dampening effect on that, I think, a lot of times. So I would suggest no, but or at least ask and give the group a chance to say yes or no before you just show up. Tammy, thoughts on that?
Oh, big thoughts, and you're kinder than I am. I'm like, that is a complete violation of, the meetings are for addicts, and I go to open and I go to closed meetings. And if I'm in a closed meeting, I expect it to be people who are, they can be, I haven't completely identified yet, but they're coming because there's a problem.
Right.
We have our drop-in groups, and we've had an issue, and unfortunately it's been the betrayed partners where they're listening in on the drop-in groups, and we work really hard at shutting that down because I hear about it.
Even my online work groups, I will say, I can see your wife in the background. She needs to leave the room.
Yes, and
it's like,
headphones
well, she
in.
wants to. I'm like, no. She needs to leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it has the dampening effect where recovery cannot take place the way it would without a betrayed partner there. Well, and I'm sorry, I totally get your desire, but go to a Recovering Couples Anonymous meeting.
Yes.
Then
both of you are welcome. Yes. Right. Yeah. But it doesn't dampen the meeting just for you. It's
everyone.
hurtful for everyone in that room. Right. They are coming there to, like, there are days when I go, I really need a meeting, and it's not because I'm going to go act out. I just need a safe place to, whatever. And to know that this is not a safe place, which is what that creates, is not okay. So that is a very unhealthy, like creating a healthy boundary. My meeting is for me. And, we talk about what you hear here, who you see here, when you leave here, let it stay here, whatever. I said that backwards.
That was good. You got it. I think you got it. Okay. I don't know.
but it's like, it has to be, these are anonymous, sex addicts anonymous, so please, that's a massive violation. So I'm not as kind as Scott is. I'm like, don't even ask. Like, don't even do that to the group. Don't put the group in position of having to think about it. No, this is my meeting. I'm going for me. And there are safe places for you, partner, or for Recovering Couples Anonymous is a great option. That's a great option. Then we can go together. So I took a picture of everything, Scott. So we'll haul
I
them
think
out
you
for
can
the
copy and paste them too.
probably, but I took
Okay,
pictures.
but if, as long as you got them.
I always know I can make a picture, take a picture, but I probably could copy and paste them. But anyway.
So probably next month, maybe we'll just start out with
We'll start
Q&A.
with those. And yes, and
just do a Q&A next month.
Tami, Tami at seekingintegrity.com if you've got questions on any of this. Scott at seekingintegrity.com if you want to follow up with him on anything. Both of us, and we aren't the only ones, but we do offer support sessions, 25 or 50 minutes that sometimes we can help point people in a certain direction. So check those out. But those work groups, please check those out. And if you're a betrayed partner, consider that Empowered Women's Retreat. It is just amazing. And you will not even, you can't even imagine how helpful it can be, you know, in that short amount of time. So
the feedback we got from women on the last one is actually posted now on the Empowered Women's page.
Yeah.
And they're pretty much gushing. So, I mean, if you're interested, read their feedback and you know,
and ask if you have questions. We'd welcome you to join that too. So thank you, Scott. I was looking forward to this one. I think it's really, hopefully it was helpful. Thank you for the questions. But yeah, we're here if we can be of help. Bye, everyone.